You are listening to Brave Talk Radio. You're just in time to join today's Brave Conversations with your hosts, Jackie Little guests, Deryl Williams and Toni Emehel.
Okay, we're going to do Flint, Michigan today. Hold on for a second. Let me take a couple of breaths. This topic makes me so angry. This is not going to be an easy one. But, okay, we got to deal with it.
No, but it's one of those things where we need to talk about it because people aren't talking about it. You know, you see this stuff on the news, you see it in the media, and, you know, because it's not affecting you, you don't think it's real.
Well, I'm of the opinion that you don't let the media determine what you talk about. I mean, they can talk about it, but I don't take my cues from the media. I never have. Since I've been an independent thinking adult, I've always been of the opinion that anything that you get from the media is propaganda. And I call television tell lies vision, because most of the time that's what they're doing, telling lies. So if you're waiting on the media to spawn discussion or intellectual discourse, they refer to people that take their cues from the media, and this is not me. If you go to any bookstore in Charlotte, you'll see books called The Idiot's Guide to This and The Idiot's Guide to That. And there are people that refer to television as the idiot box. That's what it's referred to as. So I'm not going to call people idiots, but I think that when it comes to these kinds of things, and I've been saying this the past couple of weeks, John Henry Clark said it best. History is never old. It repeats itself. It's always with us. It just repeats itself in another form. So when we're talking about Flint, Michigan, and what's going on, to me, that's a form of bioterrorism and chemical warfare that's equal to or tantamount to the university in Massachusetts that's named after Jeffrey Amherst. Jeffrey Amherst is on record historically as taking smallpox blankets and giving them to the Pequot Indians and wiping them out. Okay, so our people drinking lead infested water. And not just in Flint, Michigan either. You know me now, I'm going to come with the facts. It's not just Flint, Michigan. There's another town in Louisiana where the same thing is happening. There's another town in Maryland now where the same thing is happening. And as recent as last week, another town popped up in Pennsylvania where the exact same. See, the media is only talking about Flint. But this foolishness is happening all over the country. Not to mention just 10 years ago, we had a similar scenario take place in Louisiana with the Ninth Ward. When the hurricane hit and all the people were displaced, where were they sent to? The Louisiana Superdome. And the only person who was brave enough to talk about it at the time was Spike Lee. Spike Lee did a movie called When the Levees Broke. And in that movie, they're talking about the same exact thing, the people drinking off water, being in the Superdome, living in all these unsanitary conditions, and the population that mostly was affected by this was the black population of New Orleans. So here we have this recurring theme that's been going on and on and on now for 600 years, and it's genocide. And my problem with it is, again, you said the media. Well, I don't rely on the media, but we do get some of our information from them. Why? This is the problem I have. This is the problem I had in Boston with the genocide that was going on there and all across the country. Where's the hue and cry from the black community? Where? Where's the outrage? I'm outraged. That's why I said before we started talking I had to woosah, because this kind of stuff burns me up to see the same thing over and over and over and over again. Where's the compassion and the concern from the church community? This has been going on now for weeks. I ain't heard at our church. I ain't heard nobody say nothing. Are we still? No. And I know we are. And this is a rhetorical question. Are we still on that house Negro crap? Because that's what it seems like. If it ain't happening to us, middle class, we don't care about the poor. We don't care about the poor. That's why I'm from Michigan. It ain't got nothing to do with me. Yes, it does.
I'm hearing a buzz.
That's Jackie.
Jackie? Okay. About what, 4 times now?
No, it's not. Don't even.
No, I'm just messing with Jackie.
3. Okay, but listen, and you bring up a good point. Where is the church in it all? I think a lot of times when this stuff hits the media, And again, the media is going to show you what they want you to see. It's not going to give you the real story. And everybody knows that even lies are laced with a little bit of the truth, but you got to find the truth that's in the lie and move from there. But what I was delighted to see was John P. Key, a pastor who's here locally in Charlotte, has made his move to do some things there in Flint, Michigan, delivering water.
He always does. He always does.
Yes,
but I'm going to tell you why. You ask a valid question, and I'm going to tell you the reason why. There's some research on this. Why aren't the churches doing more and becoming more active and more outspoken? Because most of them are 501(c)(3). And as such, you cannot support candidates, you cannot get involved in political activity, or you cannot be outspoken against political activity if you're 501(c). That's what the problem is. That's one of the problems. Yeah, if you do something for 501(c) organizations, there's certain things they cannot get involved in. There's certain things they cannot speak out.
And I'm going to tell you what, I don't think that that's the prevalent issue that keeps our churches in particular from doing anything. When you say something like that, you take for granted, or you're assuming that these folks know what the laws are and they follow them in their regular and daily practices. These churches don't do that. I mean, their business offices don't do that. When it comes down to giving money, I mean, how many of these churches truly have benevolent funds? If they're not in a common practice of being benevolent to their own communities, much less going outside of their communities or going outside of the state lines and helping out other people who are having troubles, no matter what those troubles are, be it natural born or something that's being human inflicted. If they're not in a common practice of even being benevolent in their own houses, they're not going to do it outside the house. Has nothing to do with being 501(c)(3). And a lot of churches, I mean, the IRS doesn't require it.
Yeah, I was speaking in terms of some of the churches that do have the capacity and the financial wherewithal. I mean, it makes the church community look bad when on social media I see the rappers, the church community a lot of times vilifies, and rightfully so. Some of the lyrics, some of the music, I don't like it, I can't stand it, I hate it. I think it's, terrible. But when you got people like The Game, you got people like Snoop Dogg, who I vilified 20 years ago. A grown man called himself Snoop Dogg. I never got that one. Or Ice-T and all of these, infamous musicians that basically spew venom in their music. They're doing more seemingly than the church community is. The Game, they say he spent like $1 million of his own money sending, water. And I'm seeing this all over social media. John P. Key, God bless him. John P. Key has always kind of been an independent, he does his own thing anyway. God bless him.
Yeah, he did. Matter of fact, I think they said he also participated in a benefit concert, paid water bills for over 200 people there in the area, and helped a business owner reestablish her business that had literally shut down. It was a local restaurant because of the water issue. And regardless of this, the woman, black woman who was operating a restaurant there, regardless of her using bottled water to prepare her foods and things, because people assumed that it was contaminated water that she was using, they wouldn't no longer eat at the restaurant. And so she had to close. But John P. Key and the goodness of his heart, and again, stepping outside the box. But we are talking about a local minister, a local preacher, a local church who is in common practice of benevolence. This is a common practice for them. So you don't see a lot of churches doing that in the black community because we're not as benevolent in our common practices as we should be.
Well, I think that's I agree there. I do agree with that. I do agree. I guess a lot of my passion comes from just my own personal life and the things that I do. For instance, I found out and I went ahead and I did this, NewEraDetroit.org. Anybody that wants to donate anything, that's where you can go. And I've done that. I don't believe in standing by.
Say that again.
It's called NewEraDetroit.org. And it was a pastor, I believe, that set this up. His name is Keith Horton. That's where people, if they want to donate water, whatever they want to donate, that's where you can go to. I did find that out. I did that 2 weeks ago.
Good.
Yeah, but this is nothing new. This is just there's a book a lot of people should get and read called A Higher Form of Killing, and they talk about using bioterrorism and chemical warfare in that book. And for the past 4 years, well, let me back up. 4 years ago, I heard Dick Gregory make reference to this kind of thing happening. He said 4 years ago that there was going to be some type of scenario in the movie. They kind of codified this in the movie. There's a movie called Flee the Hard Way. And in that movie, it talks specifically about killing people, and black people specifically, using the water supply. This was in a movie. But the broader issue is, I mean, we're talking about lead in the water. And we're talking about, we should be talking about how that affects your body, what that causes. There was a YouTube video that was on where there was a father on, and he was being interviewed, and he just broke down and cried. And he said, they're killing my children, this African-American father. He says, my children have been drinking that water now for 2 years. What are we going to do? And he's crying. And I started crying. I'm looking at his brother, and I'm like, man, to me, that's my brother. I don't care if he is in Detroit. That is me. That's my brother.
That's right.
And he's crying about his kids. And several people on the clip, they're trying to console him. He's like, my kids are dying. What am I going to do? And, you're talking about lead getting into the bloodstreams and the bodies of these, not just the adults, too, but the children. How the children are breaking out with rashes. How their hair is falling out. And not to mention, if you do some research on lead poisoning, it causes permanent learning disabilities, problems with your kidneys, problems with your organs. This is the water that these people have been washing in, cooking with, and drinking.
Now, you mentioned the term earlier, bioterrorism. And just to be clear so everybody understands what that term means, it's terrorism that involves the intentional release or dissemination of biological agents. These agents are bacteria, viruses, or toxins, and may be in a naturally occurring or human-modified form. So this is what we're talking about with the release of these toxins that's in the water system and in the water supply.
Now, there may be some people that will say, well, how can you say that? Let me just read one little thing real quick here. It says Flint water crisis, and I took this from Governor Snyder's page. It says from 2011 to 2015, Snyder appointed several individuals as emergency managers for Flint, Michigan. In 2014, emergency manager Deryl was responsible for changing the source of the drinking water. I have this in my notes, but I'm going to read it verbatim here. For the city to the Flint River, which has, I can't pronounce whatever that is. It was discovered that the water was too corrosive and leached lead out of the service lines that were ingested by people in the city. This was in 2014. Okay, so they did this knowingly. It says in 2015, a study by the Huey Medical Center found that the community's children were being poisoned by lead, September 2015. Okay, they just declared a state of emergency in January. So you let 5 whole months go by? Okay, so that's intentional. You can't tell me that's not bioterrorism. And I'm the one who said it was bioterrorism, by the way. It was Judge Mathis. The TV judge. He's from Detroit. He's been on social media, and I think he was on some show called The Real or something. Well, he comes out and says, very plainly, this is. He didn't call it bioterrorism. He called it terrorism. But we're speaking of bioterrorism because it's water. This is water. That's a part of the. That's a part of this planet. The whole planet is 80% water.
Now, okay. Do you think this is a race issue or is this an economic issue? Because do you think it would, if this was Beverly Hills, how long do you think this issue would be going on?
I think that in Beverly Hills, they don't drink water. If people that are rich, that are super rich, the elites, they don't drink and eat what we eat. Okay, so
they got to take a shower. They have to bathe.
Yeah, they're not going to drink. If I'm the one that's in control of what goes on this planet, and I know that the water is contaminated, and I'm giving it to you, now, 10 times out of 10, I'm not going to drink it. If I know the water that you're bathing in is contaminated, and I'm one of the elites and I'm one of the super rich, of course I'm not going to bathe in that water. I'm giving that to you. And then here, race. You said race-based. Okay, Flint, Michigan, the town that I wish I'd wrote the name down. In Louisiana, they say Flint, Michigan is 60% African American. Now the media lies. They say 60%. It could be 80%. We don't know. We don't live there.
That's right.
Me personally, I don't listen to propaganda to me. They always minimize. Okay, so they're saying 60% black in Flint, Michigan. The town in Louisiana, they said the same thing, 60, 70%. So that town could be 90% black. The town in Pennsylvania where this is occurring at, they said the same thing, 50 to 60% black. So it could be 80% black. We don't know. And in Maryland, okay, you've been to Maryland. That's Chocolate City. All right, so it is. It just seems like, just looking at this on the surface, I mean, what other conclusion can be drawn? What? I mean, if the same thing keeps happening over and over and over again to the same people, Tuskegee, Alabama, the syphilis experiment, they called it, where they were supposed to be treating these brothers for syphilis, but they were giving them syphilis. So if a doctor will shoot syphilis into your body, it ain't that far of a stretch to knowingly allow people to drink water with lead in it. And I got some more bad news for y'all. That bottled water, a lot of the I found out recently that a lot of this bottled water that a lot of us drink, see me, I'm proactive. I have filters in my house. Home and Healthy Market sells filters. When Dick Gregory said what when I hear people make statements like he made 4 years ago, I'm proactive. Okay, I'm not drinking that. I'm not going to let that affect me. So I started buying filters. They're expensive, but I buy them. Destiny, she comes over here. Daddy, what is it? She knows what that stuff is. Okay, so there's ways you can filter a lot of this stuff out of the water and stop relying on these water companies, these bottled water companies to provide water for you. You have to be proactive. And a lot of these bottled waters, number one, if they're in plastic bottles, they become contaminated with parabens. Most people don't know that. You're not supposed to be drinking water out of plastic bottles. I have glass bottles here.
Yeah, here's the other thing. When you're talking about those water bottles, because a lot of people like their water nice and cold, so what they may do is
not supposed to be drinking cold water either.
They want to put that bottle in the freezer and let it freeze.
You're not supposed to be drinking cold water. You're not even supposed to be drinking freezing cold water. That's another thing. That's another discussion. Yeah.
A lot of things, just by not knowing, we cause damage to our own cells.
Well, something like fluoride. Now, see, I'm getting ready to open a whole other can. I don't put fluoride in my mouth. Most toothpaste has fluoride in it. You know what stopped me? I read everything. When you look at the label on fluoride toothpaste, it tells you do not swallow. If you swallow it, you're supposed to call poison control. Okay, if I swallow this, I got to call poison control. Now, a little simple reasoning would have me conclude that, well, this stuff is poisonous. Why am I putting this in my mouth? So I've been, for the past 6 years, using toothpaste that has no fluoride in it. What is that? Vaseline. That's called petroleum jelly. Petroleum jelly? Okay. What does the word petroleum mean? See, this is how I think. And I look at gasoline. That's gasoline. That's what you put in your car. So why would you put that on your body? My daughter, she got in the car one day. She had one of them Vaseline thingies. I said, what is that? She said, Vaseline, Daddy. I said, Vaseline, that's petroleum. That's made out of petroleum. You know what petroleum is, Destiny? She said, no. I said, come on, let's go home. We got on it. I said, read that. She read it. I bought her all of her lip balm now. I said, no, you don't put that on your body. The things that we don't know and the things that we don't look into, they used to say what you don't know won't hurt you. Yes, it will.
All right, well, let me tell you what I know right now. I know that we need to go to a break. We're going to go to a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about who's to blame for this. Who's to blame for this ignorance? Who's to blame for this bioterrorism that takes place in our society every day? And who's to blame for people not knowing what they don't know. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You are listening to Brave Talk Radio at ToniEmehel.com.
This is Deryl Williams of Brave Talk Radio coming back at you with another Black History moment. Today we'll be talking about Nzinga, the fearless African queen. Nzinga Mabandi was a ruthless and powerful 17th century African ruler of the Ndongo and Matamba kingdoms, modern-day Angola. Nzinga fearlessly and cleverly fought for the freedom and stature of her kingdoms against the Portuguese who were colonizing the area at that time. Around the turn of the 17th century, the independent kingdoms and states of Central Africa were threatened by the Portuguese attempts to colonize Luanda. Luanda today, the capital of Angola, was founded in 1576. Portugal sought to colonize the region in order to control the trade in African slaves and attacked many of their old trading partners to further this goal. And unlike many rulers at that time, Nzinga was able to adapt to these changing circumstances and fluctuations in power around her. By her own determination and refusal to give in to the Portuguese without a fight, she's transformed her kingdom into a formidable commercial state on equal footing with the Portuguese colonies. In 1617, the new governor of Luanda began an aggressive campaign against the kingdom of Ndongo. His troops invaded the capital and forced King Ngola Mabandi, Nzinga's brother, to flee the area. Thousands of Ndongo people were taken prisoner. The king sent his sister, Nzinga Mabandi, to negotiate a peace treaty in 1621, which she did successfully. But Portugal did not honor the terms of the treaty, and King Ngola Mabandi committed suicide, leaving the kingdom to his sister Nzinga. As the new sovereign of Ndongo, Nzinga re-entered negotiations with the Portuguese. At the time, Ndongo was under attack from both the Portuguese and neighboring African aggressors. Nzinga realized that in order to achieve peace and for her kingdom to remain viable, she needed to become an intermediary. She had allied Ndongo with Portugal and was baptized Ana de Sousa Nzinga Mabandi, with the Portuguese colonial governor serving as her godfather. By doing this, she acquired a partner in her fight against her African enemies and ending Portuguese slave raiding in the kingdom. The new alliance didn't last very long, however. Portugal betrayed Ndongo in 1626, and Nzinga was forced to flee when war broke out. Nzinga took over as ruler of the nearby kingdom of Matamba, capturing Queen Mwango Matamba and routing her army. Nzinga then made Matamba her capital, joining it to the kingdom of Ndongo. To build up her kingdom's martial power, Nzinga offered sanctuary to runaway slaves and Portuguese-trained African soldiers. She stirred up rebellion among the people still left in Ndongo, now ruled by the Portuguese. Nzinga also reached out to the Dutch and invited them to join troops with her. She told the Dutch she would be happy to ally with them because of their justice and politeness, whereas the Portuguese were proud and haughty. Even their combined forces were not enough to drive the Portuguese out. However, after retreating to Matamba again, Nzinga started a course and to focus on developing Matamba as a trading power and a gateway to the Central African interior. By the time of Nzinga's death in 1661 at the age of 81, Matamba was on equal footing with the Portuguese colony. The Portuguese came to respect Queen Nzinga for her shrewdness and her intransigence. With Nzinga's rule, Matamba became a powerful kingdom that long resisted Portuguese colonization's attempts and was only integrated into Angola in the late 19th century. Today we honor Queen Nzinga. This has been a Black History Moment with Deryl Williams of Brave Talk Radio.
It's Brave Talk Radio on ToniEmehel.com with your host, Deryl Williams, Jackie Little Guess, and Toni Emehel.
So we're talking about who's to blame for this. You know, who's to blame for the ignorance? Who's to blame for people not knowing what it is that they should know? Who's to blame for us oftentimes ingesting stuff that we shouldn't ingest? And who's to blame for this bioterrorism act? Not just this act that deals with Flint, Michigan, but several things throughout society that people just don't know about because media doesn't put it out there. Who's to blame?
Well, to be clear, what we're talking about is biochemical warfare, all right? And you just made a very valid point in what you just said. When you elucidated very clearly, you said the media doesn't tell us. We need to stop relying upon the media and making the mainstream media our primary source of information and become proactive and do our own research and get around people that are in the know on a lot of this stuff, that can guide us and lead us to the information that we need, that will help us preclude us from, being exposed to different things, consuming things, and ingesting things that are toxic. We talked about the Tuskegee experiment. That was intentional. Let's talk about some other stuff. See, y'all got the wrong one on the line. We talked about the smallpox that were given to the Pequot Indians by Jeffrey Amherst. You know, there's a university in Massachusetts called Amherst University, named after this man. This man was the first person to utilize biochemical warfare against the native population of this country, and he's got a university named after him. Okay, let's move on. Most people don't know, and I'm going to say some stuff here. That hopefully people will go and do some research and prove me wrong. And people need to look up HB, that's House Bill. This was a bill passed in the House. It's 15095. One of the names under that House bill is called MK Naomi. You know what MK Naomi is?
No, but I'm sure you're going to tell us.
Oh, I'm going to tell you. That's AIDS. That's AIDS. That's AIDS. The House, I can synopsize it. The House appropriated $10 million in 1969 to develop a biological pathogen. And later on it was called the human immunodeficiency virus, HIV. Did you know that? House Bill 15095. You can Google it. It's online. You can Google it. I got a whole thing here in my library, that research I did like 10 years ago on this. I knew this 10 years ago. I just keep my mouth shut about a lot of stuff. This new Zika, whatever they're calling it, Zika virus. Okay, you want to know the medical name for that? It's ATCC-BR-84. You know who owns the patent for it? The Rockefeller family.
Wow.
What you don't know will kill you.
Yes, it will.
Yes.
Let me move on. There's a document. As a matter of fact, I forget who it was. She came out and she spoke, 3 years ago. She was online and then she just disappeared. I hope they probably killed her. But she was talking 3 years ago about the United States government and other governments using water and food as weapons. See, what you don't know will kill you. And people pick at me when I go to restaurants and I ask, what's in that? What is that? How did you prepare that? You cook that in a microwave? I don't wonder if you cooked in the microwave. They look at me like now certain restaurants I go to now, they know me. But I ask all kinds of, what is that? Where'd you get it from? Was it wild caught? Was it farm raised? I want to know. If I'm going to pay for it and put it in my mouth, I need to know where it is and where it came from. Or at least attempt to be responsible for what goes inside of my temple. This is my temple where God lives. The Bible says that you are the temple and God resides inside of you. That's what it says. So I'm responsible for this. All right? Then you have what most people don't know about climate control. You see these planes flying around spraying that stuff up in the air? About 8 years ago, I'm like, why are these planes flying around spraying all that junk? And I see it everywhere, every city I've ever been in, you see these planes flying around spraying all of this stuff in the air. Well, those are called chemtrails. You know what's in those chemicals that they spray up there? Barium, strontium, manganese. If you do some research on manganese, when you're exposed to high levels of manganese, it'll make you kill your mama. That's biochemical warfare, where you can spray chemicals in the environment. See, this we talk about, and the Bible says, we need to always pray. And that's true, because a lot of this stuff we don't know. We need to be covered by something. But manganese itself, they have chemicals now. The bath salts, a couple of years ago, people were doing something with bath salts. You know, I ain't into no drugs and all that, but I found out about it. People were taking this stuff, and they were becoming cannibals, eating other people. Chemicals. That's biochemical warfare. When you can create a drug called crack, people out there need to get a book by Gary Webb called Dark Alliance. Gary Webb was a reporter for the San Jose News, and he talked about where crack see, we don't own any planes. We don't own any boats. We don't own any distribution chains or distribution, and all this garbage keeps ending up in the black community and every other community in America, but specifically the black community. And in that book, he outlines the whole network of where crack came from, how it was produced, what it was used for, as African people, we have in our bodies, we have melanin. And the melanin in our body, when you put these synthetic chemicals into us, will graft onto those chemicals. That's why they become so super addictive. That we get addicted and we can't, some of us, unless God help us, we can't, we'll die like that. Okay? Dark alert.
Let me ask this question because you talk about crack. Is crack as much a problem for people of color today as it was in the day of New Jack City?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But
why don't we hear anything about it? Why don't we hear anything about it?
Because just like you don't hear about the AIDS virus, and just like you don't hear about anything that I was getting ready to go into, there was a lady on social media talking about how they were getting milk from Russia that had been irradiated. Guess where the milk ended up? In Harlem. They were giving it to little African-American children in these public schools. See, if nobody tells you this, or Planned Parenthood, okay? Margaret Sanger is on record as saying, we don't want the word to get out that we're trying to exterminate black people. This is Margaret Sanger. You know who is one of Margaret Sanger's primary supporters is today? Hillary Clinton, who's running for president now. See, people don't know this. And you know who else was in concert with her in setting up Planned Parenthood specifically in black neighborhoods, because that's where it primarily is, Procter & Gamble. And all this can be done. You can research all of this. I mean, it's right there. But if you don't know this, and if you rely on the media to provide with information, you will be lost all day. The only thing they're going to provide for us is empire, scandal, housewives or whatever, football, the Super Bowl, all this foolishness and nonsense. You're not going to learn anything. The Bible says people are destroyed by lack of knowledge. If you don't know.
Well, let me ask this, because and my daughter Jessica, every time something like this happens, even when there was the outbreak of Ebola and the threat of it getting into the United States and people here dying, she said she would always
ask her daughter. She want me to tell her the patent number for Ebola. I have that too. All of that stuff is created in the laboratory.
And this is exactly what she's saying. The government is up to something. All they did was put this out there to distract y'all from what's really going on. So Jackie asked a question before about whether or not this was connected to economics. And again, my theory is always it's attached to economic gain.
Well, Jackie asked a very important question. She asked a very important question, but let me answer that another way. In the document, and I'm talking declassified government documents, and you know I read it, it says very plainly when they developed HIV that it was to be targeted towards undesirable members of the population. And it delineated, specifically said, blacks, Hispanics, and homosexuals. That's what it says. That's what it says in the official documentation. I read it. That's what it says.
Well, my thought on this is, when you say whose fault is it, some of it falls back on us. Because if we don't research, if we are not proactive, then shame on us. If we sit and wait for someone to come and deliver us, shame on us. It's like sitting in a house with smoke and you just sitting there, the door is there, open the door and get out. But no, we're sitting there waiting for someone to come and deliver us. No, it's not going to happen. So we have to be proactive. We have to get them and say, okay, here's the situation. What do I need to do with this situation? Instead of waiting for the media to come and say, okay, this is what you need to do. No, let me find out what's best for me. Because, the Bible does say, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. But that doesn't mean I have to be ignorant and that God is going to deliver me. Yes, there's some things I don't know, and he will deliver me. But there's some things that I can do that, God will help me through it. So I have to go to him and say, okay, God, help me, show me, open my eyes to whatever. I just can't sit here and wait because, as you said, what I don't know is killing me.
That's
so
right.
God, open my eyes to what's really going on.
Well, you did say proactive. Can I give some proactives before we close? Because there's some things we can do.
I'm gonna let you do proactive in a minute because I want to hit on a couple of things that Jackie has said, because she was talking about God being our deliverer, and yes, He is going to protect you and He's going to deliver you from the snares of the enemy, and we are talking about bioterrorism warfare. Okay, now. Faith without works is dead. So you can have faith in that scripture, but if you don't put some action to it, and that action comes from, number one, like Deryl said earlier, stop relying on the media. Do your own research. You can have faith in God providing all of your needs, but you can sit there in your house and say that without a job and dwindle away. You have to do your part. Get out and go and find a job, knowing that God is going to supply your needs through those resources because you have actively gotten up and you've done something to back and support your faith. Number two, when you mentioned from the House bill that you were reading earlier, Deryl, regarding AIDS, and you identified some classes of people that it was supposed to be targeted to. In fact, if I recall correctly, you said undesirables in the community and homosexuals.
In the population.
In the population. Homosexuals was part of that population. So now how do we get to, in that bill they were referred to as undesirable. Now they're trying to become a protected class.
No, that's part of the agenda. It's reverse psychology, and I'm going to tell you why. If you can get the men to embrace homosexuality, and this disease was designed to help wipe out that population, you're in essence killing two birds with one stone. Okay, if I'm African descendant and I'm undesirable, and I'm a male or I'm a female and I'm either a lesbian or homosexual, I mean, that's two for the price of one right there in terms of, possible infection and ultimate death. Okay, the Global 2000 report of Jimmy Carter, who everybody loves and thought he was so sweet, it says very plainly, homosexuality should be encouraged. It says that in plain language. Now, why would you encourage that? If I'm encouraging that type of behavior and I'm a part of the agenda, that has to be of some benefit to me.
Yeah.
In terms of accomplishing my agenda and my goal objectives, whatever they are, however virulent or pernicious they really are. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, it says undesirables. And how do you spread the AIDS virus? See, you don't want to come for me. In 1980, there was an article that was published in England, and it says the World Health Organization murdered Africa. And I told you that Jeffrey Amherst gave smallpox blankets to the Pequot Indians, okay, in Massachusetts, and wiped them out with smallpox. Well, guess what vaccines the Africans were being given by the World Health Organization in the 1970s? The smallpox vaccine. Guess what the smallpox vaccine was laced with? Okay, I don't need to say no more.
Wow.
And you can, anything I say, I can back it up. And that article, you can get it online. It's online. You can read it.
Well, a lot of things, it may be made for the undesirables. So in the beginning, I'm making this for the undesirables, not realizing that one undesirable is going to get with someone who is a desirable. Now,
you know what that's called in military terms?
They're taking that and they're spreading it. It's like, oh man, now we have a problem.
Jackie, back up, Jackie. I'm going to give you one example of what I'm getting ready to tell you. You had a prominent, high-profile athlete in 1991 by the name of Irvin Magic Johnson get on national television and tell the world he had the AIDS virus. Now, when I was in college, everybody that I know that contracted the AIDS virus, within a month, they were gone. Here it is almost 20-something years later, and that man is just as healthy as he was then. Okay, you know why? Anytime, this is what, and do the research, don't believe me, anytime you create a virus, and there's the potential of it infecting you, you also have to make sure that you have invented also the antidote. And it says that in the House bill. It says creation of the virus, and they call the antidote the prophylactic. It says that in the documentation.
Oh, I believe that. I believe that. It was created for the undesirable. So now,
but I'm going to give you a military term for that. When you go to war, if they send me, you, and Toni to war tomorrow, and we go to we stupid enough to go to some other country to kill people that look like us, because that's who we're going to be killing. All right, we go over there, and we start shooting, and you get shot, and I get shot in the foot, but I make it back. And Toni, she's going to be doing her makeup and doing whatever. She ain't going to be doing no shooting. She's going to be hiding. And me and Toni get to come back to America. You know what they call you? Collateral damage. That's the military term.
Yeah.
You are a casualty of war. So when we're talking about biochemical warfare and that type of terrorism that Judge Mathis is talking about, yeah, you're going to have some people that are not really necessarily targeted, but my goal, is being accomplished. You're going to have collateral damage. You're going to have casualties of war. That's just part of the course. That's what happens.
Yeah, that is. Listen, y'all, good discussion, good dialogue. We'll pick it up next.
I didn't get my proactive. Can I get my proactives real quick? One thing people can do this because people need to know what they can do to try to offset some of this stuff. People can go to any health market and buy what's called bentonite clay. You can buy it in powder form or you can buy it in liquid form. If you drink and I do this every morning, because I just don't know. I'd rather be proactive and do something to offset something and not wait for some doctor to tell me. Bentonite clay, what it does is it extrapolates metals and toxins out of your body. Okay, bentonite clay. Another thing people need to be doing is drinking alkaline water. Alkaline meaning electric with a high pH water value. Okay, if you can't buy alkaline water, if it's too expensive, you can get a lemon. Something as simple as a lemon, and take it, cut it in half, and add, squeeze it into some purified water, and that automatically raises the pH value of that water. All right. Another thing people need to do is get lead meters. You can get lead meters and test water yourself. You don't need the media to tell you that your water is infected with lead. They're relatively inexpensive. They're small. You take them anytime you try to drink something, put that lead meter in there, and if it turns red, you know that water is infested with lead. Don't drink it. Another thing that I found out about cilantro and cholera. If you drink that in the form of, you can add it to some tea or add it to water, whatever you want to do, that helps rid the body of metals and toxins. Okay? And be advised that some bottled water does contain fluoride and lead. Deer Park spring water doesn't contain any, and there's another one. I don't have that one here. There's two specific bottle companies whose water has been tested that does not contain lead nor fluoride. One of them is Deer Park, and the other one, I don't have that information in front of me right now. But those are some provided. I have some more, but that's enough to get us started.
No, that's good stuff right there. And again, just reiterating that when we do these BraveTalk broadcasts, we're not just talking to be talking, and we're not just smash mouth talking. We want to enlighten the community. We want to enlighten the population so that you don't have to wait for somebody to tell you what your destiny is. You don't, like Deryl said, you don't have to wait for the government to tell you that there's lead in your water, and we've been pumping it to you for the last 10 years. Be proactive.
The Bible says wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and in all that get and understanding. I think that's a good scriptural reference right there for just being proactive and doing your own research.
That is.
You have to go get it yourself.
And know that faith without works is dead.
Like you said, faith without works is dead. You can sit here all day long and wait, and it will never happen. You've got to get up, and you've got to do something. Find out what's going on and do something. Be proactive. That's the number one thing.
That is it. Oh, and I don't want to leave this one out because, Deryl, you mentioned this earlier. Get around some people who know more than you.
Exactly.
Get around some people that know more than you. It's BraveTalk Radio. We'll talk to you next week.
You are listening to BraveTalk Radio at ToniEmehel.com.
Today's broadcast has been brought to you by Next Level Plus Project Management and Business Consultants. Learn more about how Next Level Plus can help you solve the right problems and seize the right opportunities by calling 704-780-2997 or visit their website at nextlevelplus.org.